Hey guys, it's me again, Eric here at Mountaintop 9, and tonight I want to talk about the Black Sabbath album, Headless Cross. Now, it was released in 1989, and I'll tell you what, in a just world, this album would have been huge. It should be spoken about in the same bated breath that people speak of Paranoid and Heaven and Hell. You know, people really hold those albums aloft as, you know, the pinnacle of Black Sabbath's career. And Headless Cross, it should be up there as well. There's no reason for people to overlook this fine piece of work. On this album, you had in the lineup, of course, you have Tony Iommi on guitar. That goes without saying. But on the drums, this is the first album to feature Cozy Powell. And he really plays a big role on this album. Not just on the drums, but production-wise. He was Tony Iommi's right-hand man as far as producing this album, as far as the recording and everything. He played a big hand in it. And let's not forget that Jeff Nichols plays a big role as well. He delivers some great keyboards on here and just helps give this album a very thick atmosphere. And, you know, it kind of gives it this nice sheen. There's a really nice polish to this recording. And that's one thing that some people complain about. Some people are stuck in the past. They really like the stripped down 70s Black Sabbath sound. That's not what you get on Headless Cross. You get a nice polished 80s sound. And it's really shiny, and I think that Jeff Nichols, he plays a big part in that, as well as the production. We also have a guest bassist on this album by the name of Lawrence Cottle, and I'll tell you what, he plays some very memorable lines on here, and we'll be getting into that when we get into the track-by-track breakdown. And most importantly, this is the album where Tony Martin really comes into his own. You know, on the prior Black Sabbath album, The Eternal Idol, on that one, Tony Martin really had to step in at the last minute, and he really kind of had to follow note for note what Ray Gillen had done. So he really didn't get to imbue that album with his full personality, with everything that he could do, the highs, the lows, the mid-range. He just didn't get to express himself fully. He had to come in and he had to emulate Ray Gillen's approach, pretty much. Well, here on Headless Cross, he goes above and beyond. He wrote all of the lyrics to the album, and in addition to that, he just gives a dynamite vocal performance. And one more thing I want to talk about before we get to the track by track. On this album, Tony Martin really goes off the rails with the satanic approach as far as the lyric writing is concerned. There are so many references to the devil on this album, it's almost ridiculous. But you know what? I like it. I think it fits the album. It just kind of fits the mood. It goes along great with the album cover. But I thought that was kind of funny. You know, Tony Martin, this was his first album where he's contributing lyrics, and he thought to himself, hey, it's Black Sabbath. I'll just write songs about the devil. Now, I know some people are kind of annoyed at the over-the-top, satanic, and evil approach on this album, but you know what? It was 1989, and as far as I'm concerned, that was the perfect time period for Black Sabbath to put out an album like this. From the album cover all the way to the lyrics, it just really fit that era, because people back then were whipped up into a frenzy about heavy metal music. You know, back then, people were still worried about backwards messages. Just the cover alone with that full moon, and then you have this graveyard covered in fog and a nice big stone cross. It's a very imposing cover. It gives off an aura of creepiness. So I just think it was the perfect time period. You know, 1989, perfect year for an album like this lyrically. Now, I don't want to waste any more time. I want to jump right into this album, track by track. The album begins with an eerie soundscape called The Gates of Hell. There's a thick, hazy feeling permeating this little intro, and it sets a suitably dreary tone. You can hear what sounds like damned souls crying out from the abyss, trying desperately to escape some inferno of burning pain. And you know what? This is a perfect way to open an album like this, so you gotta give Jeff Nichols some credit. They wanted to go for a really dark vibe right from the start, and what better way to start it out than doing a little instrumental like this? And the title itself, The Gates of Hell, how much more blunt can you get? I mean, it reminds me of the Lucio Fulci horror film, The Gates of Hell. So yeah, it's 1989, we've got a Black Sabbath album called Headless Cross, and the first piece of music is called The Gates of Hell. So that tells you the direction we're going in. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's dive headlong into the first real song. Now the metal majesty truly takes flight as the title track, Headless Cross, erupts from the speakers. The first thing you'll notice are Cozy Powell's huge sounding drums. They hit you right in the face. They are slathered in so much reverb, it's like mashed potatoes slathered in chicken gravy. They are bouncing off the walls. It's a very arena rock sound almost. It's huge. They're expansive. And you know, some people may say that this sound dates the album. You know what I say? Yeah, it dates the album. It dates it with awesomeness. So I gotta hand it to Cozy right here at the start. Those drums sound great. Then the godlike guitar of Tony Iommi crashes the scene, and he unleashes a 1-2 punch of heavy riffing that sends chills down your spine. These riffs right up at the front, you'll notice how elegant they sound. There is a shine to these riffs. They remind me of a nice fancy car right on the showroom floor. You know, they just sound so crisp and clean, but the element that brings everything together is the strong vocal performance from Tony Martin. He puts on a great show here and really shows off his versatility. He mixes, you know, that gruff vocal quality. Some people like to say that it sounds a little bit like Dio, and maybe someone did say behind the scenes you should put in a little gruffness in certain lines just to make it sound a little bit Dio-esque, but whatever the case may be, I like that gruffness that he does on here right at the start of the album. You know, when he does that one line when he goes, "and on through the mist." You know, you hear that little bit of grit right there in his voice. I like that. It brings a nice little extra bit of texture to the song. And then on this album, he takes that grittiness and he mixes it in with his usual soaring melodicism. You know, that nice, clear, vibrant tone that Tony Martin is so renowned for. Like I said at the start of the video, Tony Martin had much more free reign on this album. He didn't have to just go at the album using someone else's approach. On this album, he shows much more of his personality and his take on things. And I really love the inflections, the melodic things that he does in between different lines that really help sell the song. Like if you listen to, you know, that section as they pound the land to a tune of thunder. You know those vocal inflections that he does after that line? They're really melodic and moving. I love that stuff because it adds a ton of soul, and that's something that Tony Martin is so great at, is just putting so much soul and heartfelt energy into a song. And the high notes that he hits on here, they are out of this world. Even Tony Martin himself knew that he was setting himself up for an impossible task, trying to replicate some of these notes in the live setting. They are about as high can get, and it sounds great. It's so 80s, man, and it's so metal. This kind of stuff just really makes you feel strong. It makes you feel alive. Also, the guitar and bass interplay during the guitar solo, it is so classy and it just flat out rocks. This is really showing a high level of musicianship, and the production really brings it to the forefront how good Iommi's guitar sounds. It's just shimmering. Overall, Headless Cross is a classic track, and it's definitely one that you want to turn up loud. Next up is Devil and Daughter, and it has a very triumphant, galloping feel with a heavy dose of melody. The keyboard flourishes from Jeff Nichols add add to the mood on a tremendous scale. And then on top of that, of course, Tony Martin just takes this song to another level. I mean, he approaches the vocals on this track, he just approaches them with such strength and conviction. And I love the way he slides his vocals from a nice mid-range to just soaring highs in the blink of an eye. Just take that moment in the song where he says he is the master of hell, riding again. Now you know what I'm talking about. When he gets to that riding again part, that high note that he hits, just insane. I mean, how he even did this in the studio is beyond me. I also love that moment in the song when he says she'll break any woman and take any man. It's just the conviction, the way that Tony Martin sings that line. And then on top of that, you have an absolutely mind-blowing guitar solo from Iommi on this track, where it has a very 80s feel to it because it just shreds and every note sounds so clear and bright. This song really goes hand in hand with The Lawmaker, which is a track that's on the album Tear, because they're both songs that really get your blood pumping. You know what I mean? They get you charged up. So yes, Devil and Daughter, this one is another classic. Here we go, right after Headless Cross. I already said that song's a damn classic. Well, guess what? So is Devil and Daughter. I mean, this is a great song, and it's very infectious. All right, now we've arrived at When Death Calls, and I gotta tell you, the bass line on here is just very ethereal, and the notes have this very aquatic type of sound to them. I don't know how else to describe them. They're just very alien, and it doesn't sound like anything Black Sabbath has done before or since. And it just really helps immerse you in the mournful atmosphere of the song. And then underneath those very unique bass notes, you have this brimming keyboard atmosphere that Jeff Nichols is creating. And so that's just helping draw you in. And it's very mystical sounding. And it's the perfect palette over which Tony Martin can stride on in and deliver some very passionate and convincing vocal lines. There is a line in this song where Tony Martin says, "For I believe Satan lives in the souls of the dying." Now, it's very dark, and he sings it with such intense passion that it really just moves you. And then I love the way he says the line, "just an evil shadow." You know, there's a section in there where he says that when it comes out of the first chorus, and you just feel your heart sink. As a nice counterbalance, though, there is a great 80s riff that comes in on this song during that section where he's singing "Don't Look in Those Sunken Eyes." That riff, okay, that comes in, that Iommi does there, it has a nice charging feel to it, and it just sounds so up-tempo, and it's got that clean, crisp tone to it, and it just kind of brings you out of the depression a little bit. Because that whole first half of the song, you're just kind of drowning in sorrow, you know what I mean? Musically and lyrically, it's really kind of a downer. Now, don't get me wrong, I love it. I love the mystical atmosphere that the music creates, and I love those depressive lines, but I love how the second half just really gets you charged up with that up-tempo riff and the way Iommi plays it. It's really 80s Sabbath personified, that riff, because it's very much Black Sabbath kicking and screaming right in the late 80s, you know. This isn't a 70s Sabbath riff. It's very much an 80s Sabbath riff, and I love it. I also need to mention the guitar solo is played by Brian May from Queen. He's a good friend of Tony Iommi, and I think he does a damn fine job. The guitar solo that he contributes, it fits nicely with that section of the song, so you can't go wrong there. And you know what? You can't go wrong with this track either. It's a damn fine Black Sabbath tune. I would say it's definitely a standout song on the album, but you're going to notice over the course of this review, every damn song on this album is a standout cut. So you know what? Let's not waste any time. Let's get to the next awesome track. Track 5 is called Kill in the Spirit World, and it's one of the catchiest songs on this album. It has a very bright, sleek sound, it's soaked in reverb, and it just bounces around. The tempo, it just really kind of has a bouncy feel to it, and it draws you into its clutches, because it's very sinister in a way, because that sound is very inviting, and it's very catchy, but you have these dark lyrics. Once again, Tony Martin is singing lines that are just very evil in nature. You know, the sound overall, like I said, it has that kind of bright feeling, but it still retains that quintessential Sabbath crunch, especially in certain sections of the song. Tony Martin is all over the place vocally on this song. I mean, he is just dancing from one line to the next, hitting high notes and doing all kinds of cool, catchy inflections and cool, memorable phrasing. And there is a magnificent scream that he does right before the last verse kicks in that is just so memorable. And then Tony Iommi's solo in here. It's one of those great classy lead breaks where he has Jeff Nichols creating this nice lush tapestry of keyboards that he can solo over. And he does so great in that. You know, just think about like the beginning of a song like Die Young, for example. You know how great Iommi sounds when he's soloing over some nice lush keyboard. And that's the thing that I often ponder to myself. Is there a hard rock or heavy metal fan on this earth that wouldn't know an Iommi solo if he heard one? I bet if you met a metal fan who was an amnesia patient, alright, and he couldn't even remember his own fucking name, I bet you could play him the guitar solo in this song and say, what guitar player is playing that solo? I bet you he would say without hesitation, that is Tony Iommi right there. I bet it would snap him out of his amnesia. So yeah, overall, Kill in the Spirit World. This is a very memorable song and it's very infectious. Definitely crank this one up. Call of the Wild is track 6, and guess what? It's another fantastic song. More evidence of why this album is so phenomenal and so highly regarded amongst hardcore Black Sabbath fans. This song has a big, monstrous main riff, and it sounds very triumphant, and it just makes you feel strong. I've said before in another video that a riff like this really makes you think of like a Rocky movie or something. It's just very motivational. And then you just have more stellar vocal work from Tony Martin. He's milking more devil territory here. The lines are just full-on Satan references, devil, pitchfork, and evil this and that. You gotta love the way it's juxtaposing with this sleek and polished sound that the band have going on musically. And then the chorus, it's just so catchy when he's saying, hero, only in the grave are there no dreams. That's some dark stuff right there, but it's so anthemic, and it sounds so great, and you want to sing along to it. And then there's this part right before the guitar solo where the song kind of gets sad and moving for a moment, and Tony Martin sounds really emotional as he says, all you gotta do now is stay free. You're the one they turn to when hell screams. The way he does it, it's just ladled with emotion. It's just moving and stirring stuff and just so typical of Tony Martin Black Sabbath. It just has that spirit, you know. And then to top it off at the very end, I love the way Tony sings that line, you've got the fear of the devil burning your soul. Oh man, it's just great. This is classic metal right here, and Call of the Wild, just another awesome tune. Track 7 is called Black Moon, and it's another scorching rocker of epic proportions. The dynamics of this song are what make it so special. The verse sections have this very heavy start-stop type of guitar riff, and I like that because it leaves room for things to breathe, and things can really swell in that open space. And you've got Jeff Nichols, he's really keeping the atmosphere alive live with his great keyboard work. You know, it's just more ethereal type stuff. It just keeps that atmosphere brimming. And you know what? Cozy Powell on the drums just sounds absolutely thunderous. But then on top of that, we of course have Tony Martin just singing his damn balls off, and he sounds great, especially when it gets to that immersive and highly catchy chorus. It's just great stuff. I mean, this chorus is just so immersive. It really feels like you can just get tangled up in it, and it has this very late 80s, late night type of aura. And of course, Iommi delivers another blistering guitar solo. I mean, this song wouldn't be complete without one, now would it? But yeah, man, this is just another reason why Headless Cross is such a masterpiece. Because we are just going from one song to another that is just fantastic. I mean, I haven't gotten to a track yet where I've said this track is filler, or, you know, this track sucks. No. You don't hear that. You don't hear me say that on an album like Headless Cross. And Black Moon, this is another standout song on the damn album, and you can't go wrong for a moment on this track. Alright, my friends, the last song on this album is called Nightwing, and it fades in with some beautiful cascading acoustic guitar work from Tony Iommi. You have some very tastefully placed bass lines from Lawrence Cottle, and of course, we have some awesome magical keyboard work from Jeff Nichols that just keeps that atmosphere burning bright. But it's when Tony Martin enters the picture that this song is imbued with such passion and life. Just listen to the way he sings the lines. Nightwing has stirred and taken to flight. The silence is over. He shattered the night. Now, those are very simple lines, and a singer of less capability could do those in a very boring way. But the way that Tony Martin does them, alright, he imbues them with such vibrancy. A good comparison would be to the way Ronnie James Dio sings on a song like Children of the Sea. You know, the way he does that, we've lost the rising sun, a final sign. You know the way Dio sings that, the way he injects those words with life and power. Well, Tony Martin is the same way. He's top of the line. You know, his approach is cream of the crop. He has such a high capability that when he sings a song, he doesn't take you on a straight drive through the park. You know what I mean? His vocal work is like a roller coaster ride. It's full of twists and turns and peaks and valleys. And this song, it just really exemplifies that in a very powerful way. And of course, this song has a huge Iommi riff in it, you know, that just sounds like a revving engine. It really has a nice chug to it, and it's very memorable. So you've got some nice heavy riffing in this song as well, and some more scorching lead guitar work. And I'll tell you what, Nightwing is a very special song for me because it's the type of song that really makes you feel something deep inside your heart. You know, when you listen to that end section, when you listen to that last part where Tony Martin sings, "So tell every creature of the night, the kill is around the bend, Nightwing flies again." When he does that part, and when his last scream there at the end, when it kind of fades into the music, when it's kind of fading back into that thick, hazy darkness, and you just kind of feel that the album is coming to a conclusion, you realize in your heart that what you have just witnessed is true musical greatness. And it's something that's so hard to describe, it's so hard to quantify, and you know, the mass audience may not know it. You know, your mainstream metal and rock fans may not realize it. But you and I both know the truth, and that's what matters. There are people out there that understand that the Tony Martin era of Black Sabbath is so important. It may not receive all the accolades and all the praise from like mainstream rock critics, but us hardcore fans, we know the truth. We know how great this stuff is. And the sad thing is that most people dismiss an album like Headless Cross just because Ozzy isn't the vocalist on it. Or just because Dio isn't the vocalist on it. They don't even want to give it the time of day. So it's not like this album ever even really had a fair hearing, you know? It's not like people listened to it and went, oh, that album sucks. They didn't judge it on its own merit. If people would have put Headless Cross on and turned it up and listened to it and just rocked out and just gave it a fighting chance, they would have realized, hey, this is a classy album. They would have realized what a powerful album this is, how great the guitars sound, how awesome the vocals are. They're just soaring through the stratosphere. Cozy Powell's drum work is stellar, and it just has a great atmosphere. From top to bottom, this is just such a strong album. And before I end this review, I just want to say there is a song that was recorded during the sessions for Headless Cross called Cloak and Dagger. And this song, it's like a bonus track of sorts. And if you've ever heard it, I'll tell you what, right now, I do want to touch upon it so people don't say to me in the comments, I don't want people commenting and saying you forgot to mention Cloak and Dagger. Well, I'll tell you what right now, it's a mediocre track. And I'm glad that they didn't put it in amongst the rest of the Headless Cross tracks. Because Cloak and Dagger it's kind of an average song. It's kind of funny how things come back down to earth on that one. And I can see why they didn't put it in the main track list. It's just an okay tune. I really don't have a lot to say about it. But yeah, man, Headless Cross, what can I say about it, man? I mean, personally, I think that Tear is my all-time favorite Tony Martin album. But, man, Headless Cross comes so close. Every damn song on this album has its own flair and its own unique character. That's what's so great. Each song on this album is like a different living entity with its own personality, its own quirks. And you can just really get lost in an album like this, and it's timeless. I don't care what people say about the production. Don't let people get you down or try to twist around your way of thinking and make you think, oh, that album is dated, or, you know, that album sounds too 80s. You know what? It does have an 80s sound, but I don't think that's a disparagement. I think that's a good thing. You know, so the people who are trying to use that type of stuff saying that it's dated or that it's too 80s, they're saying it like that's a negative thing. Well, in this case, it's a damn good thing. I think, you know, an album like this takes me to a time and place in my mind that I just cherish. And I just can't get enough of it. So, you know what? I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Sometime in the future, I will review The Eternal Idol. So, you know, I don't know when I'll get around to that one, but I will get around to it at some point in the future. If you enjoyed this video, please click the thumbs up, and don't forget to leave me a comment and let me know what your favorite tracks are on this mighty fine album. So thanks again, guys. I'll see you again next time.